The slap echoed through the sterile hospital room like a gunshot. Olivia Carter couldn't breathe. Her cheek burned, her vision blurred with tears. The contraction that had been building for the last 3 minutes suddenly felt insignificant compared to the shock radiating through her body. She stared up at the woman standing over her bed, the woman who was supposed to help her bring her child into the world, and saw nothing but cold contempt in her eyes. "Stop being dramatic," the nurse snapped. "Women give birth every day." Olivia swallowed hard. Another wave of pain was already forming, heavy and relentless, but all she could think about was the fact that this woman had just hit her. Hit her while she was in labor, while she was alone, while she was helpless. "Please," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. "I just need—" "You need to be quiet," the nurse interrupted, turning away. "Your husband's money doesn't buy you the right to disturb everyone on this floor." The words cut deeper than the slap. Olivia had heard the whispers before, felt the looks, the way some people stared at her like she didn't belong, like she was a stain in a place meant for someone else. The contraction hit hard. Olivia cried out, clutching the bed rails. The nurse didn't move. "Besties, before we continue, let me ask you a question. Have you subscribed to our channel? If not, please do so to help this channel build a strong community, and tell us where you are watching from in the comments section." Outside, rain battered the windows. The storm had been raging for hours, turning the night dark and unforgiving. The VIP maternity wing on the 7th floor was silent, isolated, designed for privacy. There were no other patients tonight. Olivia knew that. She'd heard the staff talking earlier. Her husband, Daniel Kang, had been called away unexpectedly. Something urgent, something business-related. He had kissed her forehead and promised he'd be back before anything happened. He'd been wrong. When the contraction finally loosened its grip, Olivia gasped. "Water," she pleaded. "Please, can I have some water?" The nurse looked at her with open disgust. "You can wait. I have other patients who actually need me." "There's no one else here," Olivia said, her voice shaking but firmer now. "The other rooms are empty." The nurse's jaw tightened. "People like you always think everything belongs to you." Before Olivia could respond, before she could even understand what that meant, the nurse walked out. The door swung shut. Then came the sound that made Olivia's heart stop. A click. The lock engaged. Olivia stared at the door, her mind refusing to accept what had just happened. Locked, inside a hospital room, in labor. The hallway outside was silent. And Olivia was completely alone. Across the city, in a warehouse that smelled of salt water and motor oil, Daniel Kang sat across from a man he didn't trust. This meeting was supposed to finalize a deal, one that would move Daniel's operations into something cleaner, more legitimate. A future where his child wouldn't grow up in the shadow of the life he'd built. But his instincts were screaming. His sources had warned him. The man across the table was planning to betray him, eliminate him, absorb everything Daniel owned. "Only delicate if one of us plans to break their word," the man said smoothly. Daniel didn't respond. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Once. Then again. He ignored it. Olivia would understand. She always did. The phone buzzed a third time. The man's eyes flicked to Daniel's pocket. "Do you need to take that?" "No," Daniel said calmly, signing his name on the contract. That was when his head of security burst through the door. Blood stained his knuckles. His face was grim. "Sir," he said, "your wife has been trying to reach you. The hospital called me. There's a problem." Daniel was on his feet instantly. "What happened?" "They wouldn't say much," the guard replied. "Just that she's asking for you, something's wrong." Daniel didn't ask questions. He didn't explain. He walked out. The car skidded to a stop in front of Meridian Crown Medical Center. Daniel was out before it fully stopped, rain soaking his suit as he stormed through the entrance. The security guard took one look at his face and stepped aside without asking for ID. The elevator ride to the 7th floor felt endless. 36 seconds. An eternity. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. Olivia's room was at the end of the corridor. Light spilled from beneath the door. Daniel pushed it open and froze. Olivia was curled on her side in the hospital bed, her face buried in the pillow. Her body shook with quiet sobs. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands hovering, afraid to touch her, afraid to hurt her more. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice barely controlled. "I'm okay," Olivia said, forcing a weak smile. "The baby's okay, I just—" She turned her face away. "The nurse," she whispered. "She got angry when I asked for help. She said I was being dramatic. When I tried to call you, she took my phone." Daniel closed his eyes. The rage inside him wasn't explosive. It was cold, focused. He stood and walked into the hallway. "I need the head nurse," he said, his voice carrying like steel. "Now." The hallway felt colder than the room behind him. Daniel stepped out and closed the door carefully, as if any sudden noise might shatter what little peace Olivia had left. The moment the door shut, the calm drained from his face. "I need the head nurse," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the quiet corridor. "Now." The murmuring near the nurse's station stopped. A few seconds passed, then footsteps approached, measured, confident. A woman in scrubs turned the corner, her posture rigid, her expression already defensive. "I'm the head nurse on duty," she said. "What seems to be the issue?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment before answering. "You struck my wife," he said. The words hung in the air. The nurse blinked once, then scoffed softly. "Sir, patients in labor are often confused, emotional. Pain can distort perception." "Are you calling her a liar?" Her jaw tightened. "I'm saying your wife was hysterical. She was disrupting the floor. I had to be firm." "Firm," Daniel repeated quietly. "Yes, she wouldn't stop crying out, demanding things, acting as if—" "As if what?" Daniel asked. "As if she was entitled." Daniel took a step closer. "Show me your hands." The nurse frowned. "Excuse me." "Your hands," he repeated. "Show them to me." For a brief moment, she didn't move. Her eyes flicked down the hall, as if calculating who might be watching. Then, reluctantly, she raised her hands, palms up. Daniel's gaze went immediately to the redness across her right palm. Not faint, not old. "Fresh." "The bruise on my wife's face," Daniel said evenly, "matches your hand perfectly." Her composure cracked. "You have no idea what people like you do," she snapped suddenly. "My husband lost everything because of men like you, years of work gone. And then she shows up here, flaunting her life, acting like this place belongs to her." "So you hit her," Daniel said. "A pregnant woman in labor." "She deserved to be put in her place," the nurse spat. "People like her think money makes them untouchable." Footsteps echoed from behind. 2 security guards appeared, alerted by the raised voices. Behind them came a man in a white coat, the hospital administrator Daniel had spoken to earlier. His face drained of color the moment he sensed what was happening. "Mr. Kang," the administrator began nervously, "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding." "I want a doctor with my wife immediately," Daniel said without turning around. "I want security footage preserved, and I want the police called." The nurse's face went pale. "You can't do this," she said, her voice wavering now. "You'll ruin me." "You ruined yourself," Daniel replied. "You assaulted a patient under your care." Security moved in. This time she didn't fight. As they led her away, she turned back, her eyes burning with hatred. Daniel watched her go without blinking. When he returned to the room, the atmosphere had changed. A doctor stood beside the bed now, checking Olivia's vitals. Olivia lay back against the pillows, her face damp with sweat, her breathing uneven but steadier. "She's progressing," the doctor said. "We're close." Daniel crossed the room in 2 strides and took Olivia's hand. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not leaving." Her eyes filled with tears. "I thought you weren't coming." "I should have been here sooner," he said softly. "I'm sorry." Another contraction hit. Olivia cried out, gripping his hand with surprising strength. A new nurse entered the room, older, silver-haired, her presence calm and grounding. "My name is Mrs. Lin," she said gently. "I'll be taking care of you now." She moved with quiet confidence, adjusting pillows, offering water, speaking softly in Olivia's ear. She never rushed her, never dismissed her pain. "You're safe," Mrs. Lin said. "I'm right here." Time blurred, minutes stretched, contractions came faster, harder. Daniel whispered encouragement, even when his voice shook. He had faced men with guns pointed at his head without fear. Watching Olivia endure this was something else entirely. "I can't," Olivia gasped at one point. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can," Daniel said firmly. "You are doing it." The doctor checked again and nodded. "It's time." Olivia screamed as she pushed, her body trembling with effort. Daniel held her hand, helpless, awed, terrified. And then, a cry. Small, sharp, alive. The doctor lifted their daughter and placed her gently on Olivia's chest. Olivia sobbed, laughing through tears. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi, my baby." Daniel couldn't breathe. She was real, warm, perfect. "She's strong," Mrs. Lin said softly. Later, when Olivia slept with their daughter beside her, Daniel stepped back into the hallway. 2 police officers waited. They asked questions. He answered every one. What happened, what was said, what Olivia endured. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't embellish. He didn't need to. "This will be taken seriously," one officer said. "The nurse will be charged, and will be reviewing past complaints." Daniel nodded. Good. When he returned to the room, Olivia was awake again, watching their daughter sleep. "You didn't have to do all that," she whispered. "Yes," Daniel said quietly, sitting beside her. "I did." Morning light crept slowly into the room, pale and uncertain, as if even the sun was hesitant after the violence of the night. Olivia woke to the sound of soft breathing. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she felt the ache in her body, deep and heavy, and remembered everything at once. The pain, the fear, the slap. She turned her head. Her daughter lay in the clear bassinet beside the bed, wrapped tightly in a pale blanket, her tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Olivia's throat tightened. Daniel sat in a chair near the window, his jacket draped over the back, his sleeves rolled up. He hadn't slept. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his eyes kept drifting back to the baby as if checking that she was still there. "She's been sleeping like that for almost an hour," he said quietly, noticing Olivia was awake. "The nurse said that's normal." Olivia smiled faintly. She looked so small. "She's perfect," Daniel replied. Mrs. Lin sat near the window, knitting something blue with steady hands. She looked up when Olivia shifted. "How are you feeling?" she asked gently. "Tired," Olivia said honestly, "but better." Mrs. Lin nodded. "That's expected. Your body has been through a great deal." Olivia hesitated, then asked the question that had been weighing on her since she opened her eyes. "She's really gone?" "Yes," Mrs. Lin said. "She won't be coming back." Relief washed over Olivia, followed quickly by exhaustion. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "Thank you," she said, "for staying, for believing me." Mrs. Lin's expression softened. "It was my duty, and my choice." Daniel stood and walked over to the bassinet, his movements careful, almost reverent. He reached in and gently lifted his daughter, cradling her against his chest. "She needs a name," Olivia said softly. Daniel looked down at the baby, her tiny fingers curling instinctively around his shirt. "What about Hana?" Olivia smiled. "It means grace. I like that." "Hana Grace," Daniel repeated quietly. "It suits her." Later that morning, the hospital administrator returned. He looked different than he had the night before, more controlled, but the tension hadn't left his face. "I wanted to update you personally," he said, standing near the door. "The nurse has been suspended pending investigation. The police are reviewing her record." Daniel's gaze didn't soften. "Good." There have been other complaints, the administrator admitted. They were dismissed in the past. That won't happen again. It shouldn't have happened at all, Daniel replied. The administrator nodded stiffly. We are initiating a full review of the VIP floor, policies, staff conduct, reporting procedures. Daniel didn't interrupt. We're also implementing an anonymous reporting system, the administrator continued, and mandatory training for all staff on patient care and bias. Those changes aren't optional, Daniel said calmly. They're the minimum. The administrator swallowed. Understood. After he left, Olivia exhaled slowly. You didn't have to do all this. Yes, Daniel said again. I did. He sat beside her bed, lowering his voice. I've spent years telling myself that what I do doesn't affect innocent people. Last night proved how wrong that was. Olivia studied his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want Hana growing up in a world shaped by my excuses, he said. I want to be better, not just for her. For you. Olivia reached for his hand. Then start here, she said, with us. That afternoon, Detective Ruiz returned. He stood near the foot of the bed, respectful, measured. The investigation is ongoing, but I wanted you to know we found a pattern. Daniel's jaw tightened. The nurse targeted certain patients, Ruiz continued. Foreign women, women married to powerful men. Complaints were filed over the years, they were ignored. Olivia felt a chill run through her. She won't be allowed to practice again, Ruiz said, and there will be charges, multiple ones. That's not justice for the women she hurt, Olivia said quietly. No, Ruiz agreed, but it's a start. After he left, the room fell quiet again. Daniel stood by the window, watching the city move below. I walked away from a meeting last night, he said suddenly, one that could have ended badly. Olivia looked at him. Do you regret it? No, he said without hesitation. I regret not leaving sooner. By evening, the storm had fully passed. Sunset painted the sky in soft gold and pink. Olivia nursed Hana with careful hands, marveling at how natural it felt despite everything she'd endured. Daniel watched them, something unreadable in his expression. She already knows you, he said softly. Olivia smiled. She knows she's safe. Daniel leaned down and kissed Hana's tiny forehead. I promise you, he whispered, I will protect that. They were cleared to leave the hospital on the 5th day. Olivia dressed slowly, every movement deliberate as her body reminded her of what it had endured. Mrs. Lin hovered nearby, offering quiet assistance without hovering too closely. Hana slept peacefully in her carrier, unaware of how much the world had already changed around her. Daniel had arranged everything. The car seat was new, installed twice, checked 3 times. The driver had been instructed to take the smoothest route home, avoiding traffic, avoiding sudden stops. You're going to be unbearable, aren't you? Olivia said softly as Daniel adjusted the blanket around Hana for the 4th time. Absolutely, he replied without apology. She's going to need therapy someday. Olivia laughed quietly, then winced. Worth it. Mrs. Lin walked them to the exit. She paused before opening the doors, her expression thoughtful. What happened to you shouldn't have happened, she said. But what you're doing now, pushing for change, that matters, for this hospital, for the patients who come after you. Daniel nodded. It should have been done a long time ago. That's how change usually starts, Mrs. Lin said gently, with someone finally refusing to accept what's wrong. She bent down and looked at Hana. Grow strong, she whispered, and kind. Home felt different. Quieter, heavier, full. Olivia settled into the bed Daniel had prepared for her recovery, pillows stacked just right. Hana slept nearby, the room softly lit. Daniel stood on the balcony later that night, the city stretching out beneath him. His phone buzzed with messages, unfinished business, consequences postponed, reminders of the life he'd stepped away from. He didn't answer. Inside, his daughter slept. His wife rested. That was what mattered. He walked back in and stood beside Hana's crib, watching her tiny fingers curl and uncurl in her sleep. "I'm here," he whispered. "I won't let the world hurt you." Olivia stirred and looked over at him. "You don't have to fix everything," she said softly. "Just be here." Daniel nodded. "I can do that." Days passed. Investigations continued. Policies changed. Complaints that had once been buried were brought to light. People who had been ignored were finally heard. Daniel made calls, signed documents, met with people he never would have spoken to before. Not to protect himself, to protect others. One afternoon, Detective Ruiz returned with an update. "She's being charged," he said. "Multiple counts. Her license will be revoked permanently." Olivia closed her eyes, exhaling. "Good." "She blamed you," Ruiz added quietly, "for her husband's failures, for her life." Daniel nodded. People look for someone to blame when they refuse to look at themselves. "That doesn't excuse what she did," Ruiz said. "No," Daniel agreed. "It doesn't." That night, Olivia sat in the nursery, rocking Hana gently. The room smelled faintly of clean linen and something new. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching them. "How do we keep her safe?" Olivia asked quietly. "How do we teach her to be strong without making her hard?" Daniel walked over and knelt beside them. "We show her," he said, "every day, by how we treat each other, by what we refuse to tolerate." Olivia smiled. "That sounds exhausting." "It probably will be," he said, "but we won't do it alone." Hana stirred, her tiny hand brushing Olivia's finger. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. She survived something terrible before she was even born. "So did you," Daniel said, "and you're still here. Stronger together than apart." Later, when the apartment was quiet and the city lights blinked beyond the windows, Daniel stood holding Hana against his chest. He thought about the man he'd been, the man he was trying to become, the darkness that still existed in the world and in himself. Then he looked down at his daughter, at the life they had created, and he knew what was worth fighting for. "Daddy, here," he whispered. And for the first time, the promise felt heavier than fear and stronger than it. If you enjoyed this story, besties, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Drop a comment below.